Let's dive into one of rock music's messiest breakups. Nope, not that one. This one. The Smashing Pumpkins, with Billy Corgan's haunting vocals, Jimmy Chamberlin's thunderous drumming, and James Iha's swelling guitar work, always had one constant grounding the chaos. D'arcy Wretzky. But the question is, how does someone go from being in one of the biggest bands of the 90s to vanishing almost entirely from the music scene altogether? Today, we're diving into what really happened to D'arcy Wretzky and why she disappeared from the limelight. To understand how we ended up in that position, we have to look at where it all began. To give a bit of background to D'arcy herself, she was a native of Michigan, and while growing up she continued to express an interest in post-punk, and started to play in bands to continue further her playing. She eventually moved to France to join a band there, but when she touched down in Paris, she quickly learned the band had already disbanded. Not ideal. She would move back to America and she would end up in Chicago, which in the end would work out. D'arcy met Billy Corgan in 1988 after a chance meeting outside a Chicago venue. Overhearing Corgan's critique of a band outside of their own show, D'arcy would enter a spirited debate with her future bandmate, something which was a sign of things to come. Days later, she'd gone from arguing with Corgan to joining his band.
Did we just become best friends? Yup!
Her classical training brought a melodic elegance to the gritty edge of the Pumpkins' early sound. The band would begin to write, and in 1990 would enter the legendary Smart Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, to record their debut album Gish. The most notable thing about the studio was the person who it was run by, Butch Vig, quite an important name, who would soon become one of the most influential producers of the decade. And if you don't know why, I mean, this channel might not be for you. I'm only kidding, please stay. Anyway, Billy Corgan wasn't just writing the songs and playing his parts. He started to become obsessed with the tone of the album, and he eventually re-recorded nearly all of James Iha's and D'arcy Wretzky's parts, something that would cause initial tensions in the band. Corgan would cite consistency as the reason he moved forward with recording the parts. Despite the inner turmoil, Gish became an underground smash hit. It didn't top the charts, but it did become the highest selling independently released album at the time, shifting over 500,000 copies, something which was a massive feat for a debut with no major label push. However, most importantly, it laid the groundwork for what the Smashing Pumpkins would become. Not grunge, not metal, not shoegaze, but something uniquely theirs. By 1992, the Pumpkins had signed to Virgin Records, and it was about time to record their second album, so they went to Georgia to record Siamese Dream. But the weight of expectation was crushing, and behind the scenes, things were less than ideal. Billy was suffering from a deep depression, which saw the singer contemplate his life. Jimmy Chamberlin's heroin use worsened, but what happened to D'arcy? Well, James Iha and D'arcy had been romantically involved, but had recently separated before their 1992 performance at Reading Festival, and this added another layer to the tension in the band. It seemed that the Pumpkins were on a course for complete detonation.
Very bad feeling about this.
Despite all the odds, Siamese Dream released in 1993 to major success. Critics hailed the album as a masterpiece of textured guitar layers and emotional depth, and NME called it artful, angry, and essential. The band then somehow continued to go further and entered its peak. By 1995, the Smashing Pumpkins were massive. They entered the studio to record Mellon Collie and Infinite Sadness, an audacious double album that fused orchestration, metal, piano ballads and glam rock into an incredibly ambitious album. However, unlike the past, this time Billy loosened the reins slightly. For the first time, Billy let go. Just a bit, we actually got to be part of it, said D'arcy in 1995. It's safe to say that the album was a massive success. Hit tracks like 1979, Bullet with Butterfly Wings and Tonight Tonight made sure that the Pumpkins were everywhere, and the album to date has sold over 10 million copies. But, as you could probably guess, with that success, more pressure arrived. During this period, Jimmy Chamberlin was kicked out of the band after he and the band's touring keyboard player, Jonathan Melvin, overdosed on heroin before the band's performance at Madison Square Gardens, with Melvin dying from the overdose. That left Billy, James and D'arcy to carry on. D'arcy increasingly struggled with the emotional toll of fame, anxiety and her lack of creative input. She began withdrawing. Billy, meanwhile, grew more controlling, well, as the rumours have it. In 1998, the band decided to record one more album and break up, which is what they did, but D'arcy wouldn't make it to the end of the recording. So, let's get a little bit into the split. Wretzky herself confirmed in an interview with Alternative Nation that she was fired from the band by Corgan. Despite this outcome, D'arcy stated that she was already ready to leave the band when she was fired. D'arcy was at the time having a nervous breakdown and was experiencing up to 30 panic attacks a day. She said about the treatment that she received in the band, "Billy loved to humiliate people and shame people in front of other people. It was incredibly abusive and I was the only one who would fight back. I just got to the point where I couldn't fight anymore and I needed to leave." D'arcy tried to quit the band multiple times. However, she did continue after being urged by family and friends to keep going for one more album. Corgan and Iha would eventually give Wretzky 3 months off to focus on herself. She would use this time to pursue an acting opportunity, and once Corgan caught wind of this, all hell broke loose.
I'm so pissed off right now.
So we've been very one-sided up to now and gave you what D'arcy said. But what about Corgan? Well, Billy Corgan contradicted her claims in a blog from 2004. He stated, "D'arcy was fired for being a mean-spirited drug addict who refused to get help." Corgan later claims it was to prevent further decay in the band. In reality, this was the beginning of the band's impending hiatus. D'arcy later confirmed her drug use, but saw it as a way of self-medicating various illnesses she was experiencing. At the time of the breakup with D'arcy, Corgan would use the press to comment on the situation, saying things like, "I wish D'arcy would come back and play." Overall, both were at heads with one another, and the situation was tense. So what we're saying is there's probably truth on both sides here.
You're both wrong.
After D'arcy Wretzky left the Pumpkins in late 1999, she didn't just exit the band, she removed herself completely from the musical world. She did very few interviews, didn't attempt any solo projects, she simply had had enough. She actually retreated to a horse farm in Michigan, away from the limelight. A few arrest records made the tabloids. These would include minor charges like letting horses roam too freely, or an unfortunate drug possession charge in 2000 that was later dismissed. But beyond that, nothing. In 2009, to a fan site, D'arcy said she had no interest in returning to the spotlight. Many fans saw this as her choosing peace over fame, and with what she had been through, could you blame her? So with retreating to a farm, and the bust-up that had happened between her and Corgan, there was obviously no chance of her coming back. Was there? In early 2018, Billy Corgan began teasing a long-awaited reunion of, well, most of the original lineup. This was teased to be himself, obviously, James Iha, Jimmy Chamberlin, and possibly D'arcy Wretzky. For a moment, fans dared to hope. Texts were exchanged between old friends, emails sent. D'arcy, it seemed, was considering it. But then, everything unravelled spectacularly. And very publicly. Not like the Pumpkins to do that. D'arcy released an explosive series of texts and statements through Alternative Nation, accusing Billy of manipulation and betrayal. They were straight back at it. "He asked me to come back," she wrote, "but then strung me along with vague promises and told the press I refused. I never did." She claimed she was offered nothing more than a guest appearance, not a full reunion. A glorified session player. "He wanted me to be a ghost in the band." Corgan fired back with an interview in the Howard Stern show, saying D'arcy was mentally unwell and delusional, further stoking the flames. Fans were divided. Some supported Billy's claim that she wasn't in a fit state to return, others accused him of gaslighting and playing with history, which is not off form for him. In the end, the band went on without her. The band, when it would reunite, would consist of James Iha, Billy Corgan, Jimmy Chamberlin, and Jeff Schroeder. Just before we jump into the conclusion, I do want to say I am a massive Smashing Pumpkins fan, and I do really enjoy Billy Corgan's music.
Well, you could have fooled me.
In the past, might have been a little bit of a diva, yeah, but who wasn't in the 90s? So, when we look at this situation, it's probably best to take a middle ground and decide that some truths are truths and other truths are extensions of the truth.
You calling me a liar?
I ain't calling you a truther.
So yeah, D'arcy didn't just leave the Smashing Pumpkins. She walked away from the whole machine. Fame, music, the constant pressure, all of it. She was just fed up of it. And honestly, you kind of get it. After everything she went through, the control, the burnout, the emotional toll, it makes sense why she'd want out. She didn't try to start a solo career or jump back into the spotlight. She just disappeared, and in her own way. And that's kind of powerful. But even if she's not front and centre anymore, her role in the band mattered. A lot more than she usually gets credit for. Because if you listen to those early records, and I mean really listen, you'll hear what she brought. That quiet but essential presence that held it all together while everything else was falling apart. So whether she picks up a bass again or not, D'arcy Wretzky left her mark.